Hey everyone, welcome to my show, My So-Called Fabulous. I'm Tiffany Blackman. How you doing out there today? I am so excited to talk to you because we're going to talk about a lot of fun things. We're going to get a little sciencey today, which is, you all know, out of my comfort zone, but we're going there. And today I have in the studio Staci Danford with The Grateful Brain. Staci Danford, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's so good to see you. I am so excited. I want you all to go to her Instagram. It is beautiful. You are so full of color. I just love it.
I try to bubble from the inside out.
I know. Bring it out. Bring it out. Absolutely. Well, we have recently met through social media, through Liz Diane, which we both adore. And so I said, have her on the show. And I'm so intrigued because everyone just listen. She is a neuroscientist. Can you believe it? I am in the room with a neuroscientist. None of you would have thought that would have ever happened. My producer, Paul, is shaking his head. He was so shocked. So welcome.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness. So I am so excited to dive into this, but I'm going to give a little bit of your background. You are The Grateful Brain.
Yes.
That is your website. And you were a classroom teacher for 25 years.
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. Education.
Long time.
Are you, we're going to have to hit on this. Are you happy you're not in right now with the COVID going on?
I my personality doesn't do well with being told what to do. And it's okay when I was in the classroom, you get a few rules from the principal and then you just go in your room and shut the door. But there's so many right now that I know me personally, I would not do well with that.
There's so many rules, right?
We just did the first day of virtual junior high today.
That's right, your son.
Yes. And I was like, son, I don't really know, but I think there's a problem. He has 3 classes scheduled for second period, none for third, none for fifth, none for sixth, and then 2 for seventh.
What?
I said, I think there may be a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
The structure is just so odd.
And I feel bad for them because I know, and my son's a teacher, my big son. And I said, I know they're doing the best they can. It's just, It's crazy right now.
Okay, so you have 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. So you have your son that's married,
yes.
right?
He's
and
30.
He's a teacher?
Yes, he's a coach. Uh-huh.
Oh, good. Okay, so he's a coach, and I have to take a peek because on YouTube is his engagement to his now wife at Cowboys. So it was...
Yes, she was a Dallas Cowboy dancer.
There it is.
Yeah,
okay.
Rhythm and Blue. And he bought her an engagement ring a year before when she tried out for the Rhythm and Blue. And I told him, I said, son, if you ever do anything, please listen to me. I said, let that girl have her dream. And I said, because she will stop what she's doing and marry you. And then 20 years later, she's going to hold it against you. So he kept the ring under his sink in a little box for a year.
You're kidding.
And she did the Rhythm and Blue, and they had to go all the way up to the top to get it okayed with the Cowboys. But, but it was the last home game, and he wanted to propose to her, and they had it all set up, and we were all there. She thought we all came because it was her last, home game, and it was precious. And they had him come out, and the Cowboys are really strict about what you can say and who you can talk to during the game. And she was in the middle of her dance, and then he comes out from the back of the stage, and she just looks up, and he's standing there, and she starts backing away from him, like, what are you doing here? And then they stopped the music and started playing, Will You Marry Me? And he got down on his knee, and and it was live on the Jumbotron, and it was precious. It was,
so this, as a mom, you and I are similar ages, and as a mom, I don't think there's anyone good enough for my daughter. I really don't. But you're telling me.
She is. I could not have handpicked anybody better. She is a doll, and she's beautiful and gorgeous and could easily just be snotty. And she is a doll.
Okay.
And she can wear, we call them fat pants at our house after we eat Thanksgiving. And we're like, all right, it's fat pants time. And, she'll put on the grubbies and clean, or she can just look like she walked out of Vogue, and her heart is as kind as her beauty. I couldn't ask for better.
Well, I have to say, as a mom, that is the pie in the sky for me, for her, my child, to be happy. So you have a daughter that's a nurse, ICU nurse?
Yes, ICU in Florida.
Okay, in Florida. That's right. How is that?
I hate it.
Oh, no.
She just moved. It'll be 2 years in November.
Oh, wow.
And she's always been my Spitfire kid. And she said she wanted to go do travel nursing. And so I was like, okay. And she was going to go just for a few months, and she's been there 2 years.
Oh, gosh.
And she just bought a beautiful house on the Mayaka River.
She's staying.
Yes.
Okay. And then So your son is 30. Your daughter is
27.
And you're okay, girl.
And then I have a 12-year-old.
Okay.
That was God's funny little joke on my 41st birthday.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Oh,
but he is the precious. And I describe my 3 kids all the time. My oldest son is the love of my life. Mm-hmm. And he's the first thing I ever loved. And to this day, he walks in a room and just melts my soul. And my daughter is the joy of my life. And she's the funny, she's the fire, she can make me laugh. She's my best friend. She's the joy in my soul. And Brady is the gift of my lifetime. He is the best parts of all of us put together in one little person. And he's like my life's do-over. And
Staci,
this
is incredible.
He is a doll. I mean, and truly, since the day he was born, he has never caused me a drop of trouble. He's brilliant, smart, crazy scientist, and he's kind, he's sweet. He slept all night. He ate any food I ever put in front of him.
Wow.
He truly is the gift of my lifetime.
You are quite the mommy.
Well, thank you.
I can tell.
I love my babies.
Of course. I know. There's nothing like having a child and the love that you have for a child. So I know. So you taught for 25 years. You were telling me that the only grades you didn't teach were 4th and kindergarten.
That's
right.
I taught all the rest.
All of them. So Staci, I graduated TCU. Started teaching. I was 21 years old and teaching seniors.
Wow.
That basically are a couple of years
younger than you.
And that was that phase, I wasn't cut out to do that.
Right.
And I mean, I'm on social media with some of these kids. They're almost my age. And they were so close to my age, it just didn't work out. And I did not stay in education.
Right.
I stayed 5 years, but then went on to grad school. But it wasn't, that wasn't meshing for me. That, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I mean, the age, it was just too close. And
right. And it's such a hard job, and they just don't tell you anything about what's going to happen in college. And my first year of teaching, I had some of the most insane things happen. And I was like, they didn't tell me any of this in school. And one of them, I went to the car one day to talk to this little boy's parent, and he couldn't read very well, and I was teaching first grade at the time. And I said, okay, Christopher, I'm going to keep you at school and then I'll take you home and we're going to teach you how to read. And he said, okay. But his parents didn't speak English. And I said, okay, when they get here, go to the car and then I want you to translate so you can tell your daddy that I'm going to bring you home. And so we get out to the car and I stick my head, in the window and I'm trying to tell the dad. And I just happened to look down and jump back. And he was sitting there in his tighty-whitey underwear.
Oh, no, can't do that today, can you?
I was like, I just wanted to tell you that Christopher's awesome.
Oh, my goodness gracious. No, can't do that. Can't do that right now.
They did not teach us that in college.
They didn't teach us that in college. They did not teach us that at all in college. But yeah. So you decided at 49 to go to grad school, and your life was turned upside down.
Yes.
Right? So do tell me
49 was a crazy year. When I turned 49, my birthday's January 1st. So we went back to school on January 3rd, and I announced to a room full of teachers that this was going to be the best year of my life. My New Year's resolution was to do one crazy thing every month of my 49th birthday, and that I was going to ride into 50 with my wheels on fire. And everybody was like, oh, yeah, you probably will. And I was going to climb a mountain. I was going to do a marathon. I was going to do all these crazy things. And 2 weeks later, my husband left me. And I never saw it coming. And I truly didn't. And I was devastated. And I laid on the floor and cried for probably a week. And I realized that I had left all of my happiness in the hands of someone else.
Oh my gosh.
And I had already been accepted to grad school. And I didn't go that semester because I was so heartbroken, and I'd canceled my admission. And then after I, got it together and realized that I get to be in charge of my own happiness. And this is what I'm going to give myself for my 50th birthday. I'm going to figure out how to be happy if it kills me.
Right.
And so I had to go get readmitted into the department. And that's what I was telling you when I went in I wasn't thinking, I guess. And I'm always colorful and crazy. And I walked in to talk to my professor in bright orange pants and a hippie poncho and about 14, turquoise necklaces. And I walked in his office and he had his little lab coat and his bow tie. He's from Harvard.
Oh, my.
And all things Harvard. He's very serious. But I love him to this day. And I told him, I said, if you will let me in, I promise you I will make neuroscience fun. I'll be the world's funnest neuroscience. Just please give me a chance.
Oh, my goodness.
And he did.
And he did. And he did. Oh, my gosh, at 49.
I know.
I mean, I'm 54 or 55, and we can't remember. We can't remember because it's that menopause. We're going to talk about that. But your son, Brady, now that's 12,
that's his dad.
That's his dad. Thank you very much. Okay, so that's his dad. So seriously, did you not think really that, I mean, you were blindsided?
Yeah, I was totally blindsided. I can truly say I never, ever would have thought it in a million years. I never saw it coming.
Oh, that brings me to what you're doing now. But I also want to say that you mentioned to me, hate the giver, not the gift.
Yeah. Well, and
your son.
I couldn't, I was mad at him for a while. And, and especially he had a, younger cutesy girlfriend after a while.
Right.
And she would go to the, soccer game or whatever. And I could feel myself getting so upset. And I thought, you know what, Staci, you cannot hate the giver, but love the gift. You have to take them both. And it completely transformed the way I looked at him. And I can truly say I have no ill will toward him. I wish him the best because he truly gave me the greatest gift of my lifetime.
Oh, absolutely.
And I look at him now and I can say, honestly, I have no anger. And he truly, some days I want to write him a thank you note and tell him, you gave me the courage to do things that I probably would have never done. And I always say good is the enemy of great. And my life was good before, and I would have just probably coasted on with good. I would have retired from teaching. I love teaching, and I would have just had a good life.
Right.
And he pushed me into great.
Isn't that amazing? Okay, so you are remarried now.
Yes.
You're remarried to a high school friend, right?
Yeah, we dated in high school.
Oh, my.
And I broke up with him because he kept talking about his ex-girlfriend's hair in 1983. That's really all we remembered. She did have beautiful hair. And we didn't realize that, I didn't even know he lived in the same town. And we hadn't seen each other in 35 years. And then come to find out, our sons were at the same karate studio for almost a year, and we didn't even know it. And the way the karate studio was, the parents sit kind of behind the glass, so you can't see them. And I had posted a picture of Brady on Facebook that he had won a karate medal. And he saw it and realized that was this same studio. And he came and sat by me one day, and I was like, who is this creeper all up in my space? And he said, you don't recognize me, do you? And I was like, what are you doing here? And he said, I live here. That's my son. Well, his son was my son's mentor teacher the whole time, and I didn't even know it.
You're kidding. No.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh,
small world.
That's a small world. So then you were married. Okay. Yes. All right. So you're saying something that's resonating to me. I absolutely adore Greg Blackman. My husband, 9 years. We've known each other 10 years, and adore him. I just think he is the best heart, soul. He's my best friend. But I do worry. I was reading your website and the workshops that you offered, and I do want you to explain that to me. But, I wonder, I'm happy. I'm so happy. But, menopause and life gets in the way. And are we taking care of each other? Does that make sense?
Yes.
You know what I mean?
And I think truly happiness is something you have to cultivate. It's almost like if you can think of it like a plant. Mm-hmm. And, just because it's beautiful and wonderful at one time doesn't mean it always will be unless you continue to water it and move it to a new pot and put it in the sun. And, we think that once we're happy, we'll always be happy. Mm-hmm. And that's the misnomer. And so when we aren't happy anymore, we go get new stuff, new husbands, new noses, new cars, new whatever. Mm-hmm. And then we realize pretty soon we're right back where we started.
Oh, gosh.
And the only common denominator is you. And I always tell people, you go with you everywhere you go.
Right.
And when you don't know how to cultivate your own happiness and create it based on the chemicals in your brain, that's when it goes away. Wow. And you start reaching for it in new things, drinks, food, sex, gambling, all the things that people are addicted to. And that's the reason, is because it creates that momentary dose of dopamine, which is the happiness maker in your brain. And all of those addictions create dopamine.
Because, I remember when in each relationship I've had, each male relationship that I've had, that, oh my gosh, I'm just dying if I'm just going to die if I don't see him. And that energy and, you get life. Explain, is that normal?
Yes, that's very normal. Okay. And what's bad is we want that back, but it's always a trade-off.
Right.
And because, that is created, it's called novelty in the brain. And anything new creates that sparkly, wonderful feeling. And when somebody loves you or desires you or thinks you're wonderful, that feeling of the love hormone is oxytocin. And we love it. And that's why we dress up, we look good, we smell good. After a year or two, then you realize, oh yeah, you look like crap in the morning, your breath stinks, and you've worn those same pants 3 days now.
Right.
And so we want the comfort of knowing somebody will love us no matter what, but yet we also want the sparkle, and it's very hard to have both. And the only way to keep that sparkle is to keep novelty. And that's the secret, is to keep doing crazy, weird, fun, go ballroom dancing, or I bought tap shoes the other day and I'm now learning to tap dance in my garage.
Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness.
And my husband was like, what are you doing? And I said, oh, you just wait till I get me a cute little outfit. I'm going to be tapping in this garage and you're going to like it.
Absolutely.
And he was like, all right, I guess.
Okay. But keeping it new. And you know what? I have to say, I have been so busy because I started my business, the podcast in January. So I've been so busy trying to just, business, creating a new business, starting a new business. My husband retired in October 1st. Then COVID happens and we're together. I mean,
all the time.
So I am guilty because I think I need to create some happiness because it scares me to death. I mean, I do have girlfriends say, hey, are you, making sure?
Keeping it spicy.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even have to be anything, sexual or what. It's all crazy stuff. Like, one day he came home and I'd rearranged the living room all crazy. And he was like, did we want that? And I was like, this we did. And I was like, just think about it. We could watch TV backwards if we look at the mirror. And, just goofy stuff. And cook a meal you've never cooked before. Eat on polka dot dishes or, just something fun, because fun is truly a chemical reaction. And it's connected to the person that creates the fun. Mm-hmm. So which is why new relationships are all about chemicals, because that person is attaching in your brain to fun. And so you're like, oh, I have to have them because they make me, happy and fun. And if it's just little things that, I helped my husband mow grass the other day and I was on the riding lawnmower and I kept running over stuff because I couldn't remember how to do reverse. And, so I turned my hat around backwards and I said, just pretend like I'm going that way.
Wow.
And, it's little things, but it's the chemical reactions that are the most crucial thing we could ever do for our brain.
Do you think that, my husband is very routine oriented, extremely to the minute. I mean, he times himself and that's great because I expect that. Do you think that we get into that routine and if you don't break out of that cycle?
Well, in some people though, that's just how their brains are wired. And I teach people with this thing called foundational filters. And every person's brain has about 5 to 7 foundational filters, and they're in the lizard brain. So they're in the oldest part of your brain. So you see the world through these foundational filters, and then you act in the world. And certain people have certain filters. And I give people this list of words and the definitions, and instantly they'll pick stuff out and throw them away. So we did them at our house, and I started this in the middle of grad school. Well, one of mine, my husband's, is he's justice, integrity, trustworthiness, and mine are growth, beauty, dedication. So we literally see the world through 2 different filters. And one of the things I do in my business is help people understand it's not personal, it's your filter. And so my husband is an engineer. He's very regimented. He tells me so many more details than I want to know about something. I'm like, please get to the point. But that's just how he thinks. He thinks if you know the amount of details that you need to, then you'll make a correct decision. And I'm like, no, I can make 3 wrong ones by the time you're through telling me all those details. So I just have learned that that's the way he sees the world. And we just tend to take everything personal. Mm-hmm. But my son, my 12-year-old son, he did it with us. And he has also integrity as one of his foundational filters. And he said, Mom, that's why you lie all the time. And I said, what are you talking about, Brady? I said, I have never lied to you in my life. He said, you lie every day, at least once. And I was like, what? You've got to be kidding me. Well, for someone who has integrity as a core value, they tend to think that, like, if you ask me what time it is, I'm going to hit you closest to the hour. Like, oh, it's almost 6.
Right.
Well, Brady said, no, it's not almost 6. It's 5:47. And you know that.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And when all the times I'll say, all right, we're leaving in 5 minutes. And then it's really 12.
Sure.
Or, yeah, we'll probably do that tomorrow. But then it's 6 days later. For someone who that's the filter that their brain sees through, you become a liar. And it's so important to understand your family and your spouse and your people, how their brains work, because it creates a terrible, disconnect. So of course I don't want my son to think I'm a liar. So now I'll say it's almost,
Hang on.
It's 11:52.
Right.
I'm very careful about that.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. And if you had that, like, think about that in a marriage. If somebody thought you were a liar, and then you're late coming home or whatever, and they're like, yeah, I don't believe anything you say because you lie about what time it is.
Oh, my goodness.
So those things they're crucial in a relationship, and it's all about your brain.
So your the Grateful Brain, your business, you help couples, you help businesses. What exactly, you're doing this for us, right?
Yes.
Tell me
And
this.
I do that with corporations. And in my keynote the other day, I did a workshop after where I taught people about their foundational filters. And, it's in a business, especially if you have an employee that, one of their foundational filters is dedication, and they had a sick child, and one of yours is maybe professionalism, and they were late. Well, they were cleaning up throw up, but they still came because they were dedicated employee. You're seeing it very differently. You're like, golly, why can you never get here on time? And so if you understand what their core foundational filters are, you're like, oh, I know why they did that.
Wow.
And then you explain it to them, like, okay, next time if you just text me and let me know you're going to be 5 minutes late, then we can both keep our foundational filters intact, because that is truly what causes every argument. Is I call it a filter bump. When you bump against someone else's filter, like mine, one of my core filters is beauty. Excuse me. And so now I understand why a messy house can turn me into a demon. And it's, and I start griping at everybody. And, oh my gosh, why did you move that? Well, it's because that messed up my beauty. I love a beautiful house. I love a beautiful yard. I love a beautiful table setting. And I always have, but I didn't know why. But that's the way my brain is wired. And my husband, who could care less, and when we got married, he had boxes in the garage that had been there 10 years.
No.
And I'm like, this is the first place you walk. Are you kidding me? How can we have this? Right. But for him, that was very efficient. It was taped up correctly. It was marked, and he's like, wow, what's wrong with that box? Wow. So it's been a game changer in our personal relationship as well as with my son. And I wish I would have known it when my older kids, were little, so I could have maybe worded things a little differently.
What a game. What a gift. I mean, that is incredible. Your grad degree is a gift.
It is. It has truly been the greatest gift.
Okay, so tell us what your graduate degree, which it started at Harvard.
Yes,
correct?
It's called Mind-Brain Education. And I did not know when I started that the mind and the brain are two different things. And if you ask people what their mind is, almost always they'll tell you their brain. And they work simultaneously, but they're very different. And I always describe it as hardware and software on a computer. And your brain is like the hardware. It's like the motherboard and, all the intricate parts. But your mind is like the software. It's like Word and Excel and PowerPoint. Your computer can have the greatest motherboard and the fastest RAM and all, but if you don't have software to put in it, it's pretty much no use.
It's worthless.
That's why people can be alive, but their brain dead, because their mind is no longer working. You're no longer putting any software into the hardware. So it's not working anymore. And so I always, think of it, your mind is like your thoughts, and your thoughts create the connections and the chemicals that your brain produces. And every single thought is creating either an electrical or a chemical signal. Everyone. And the average person has about 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day. And according to research, about 80% of those are negative. And each one of those is creating a connection, which is also creating a chemical. And, we think, oh, there's no way I think that many negative thoughts. But women, especially, we're brutal on ourselves, and we're more cruel to ourselves than we would ever be to a stranger. And, think about in the mornings when you wake up, you're like, oh my God, this gray hair, look at this crazy, that cellulite, my knees are slipping down my shin.
Shoes.
Who wants you? Yeah, you're so gross. Your butt looks like a giant in those jeans. And all of that is not harmless. And, we tend to think that if we don't say it out loud or we don't do anything to ourselves, then it's of no consequence. But it is. And every single connection, the more times you think it, the tighter the connection becomes. And I kind of describe it because I'm from the country. It was riding the ruts. And, when you used to drive through the pasture, you create these ruts. Well, the next time you go down, you drive back through the ruts and back through the ruts. Pretty soon you have a road. And if you try to get somewhere else, it's a lot harder to go through. Well, your brain is built for efficiency, and it likes to go down the same path because then it doesn't have to go make a new one. And it's like, oh yeah, you hate yourself.
Yeah.
And it just connects it all for you, dumps out the chemicals of self-loathing and people that'll eat a cookie and then they're mad at themselves for like 4 hours. And you're like, oh my God, life is too short. Like, eat the cookie. And if you do eat the cookie and you enjoy it, it actually changes your metabolism and you digest it very differently than if you eat it loathing and, oh, I can't believe I'm doing this. What am I doing? It creates the chemicals that create the digestion. It changes everything.
You're kidding.
No.
That is so incredible. I mean, just the brain. I mean,
it is.
And it is true. I believe there's so many negative thoughts.
Yeah, they're everywhere. And I truly did not understand the power of our thoughts. I had no idea. And I was nice to people. I'm never mean to anybody. And I thought as long as I don't say it,
right,
I'm not doing anything. And especially women, the thoughts we think about one another and we think those are harmless, we don't say them. They're also creating a chemical and electrical signal, which is dumping stuff into your body.
Wow.
And we're brutal.
We are brutal.
Yeah.
I know. It's, you and I have talked about menopause and what we're going through right now. And, it is brutal.
It is.
It is. It's just like, oh my goodness, I wish I had my old self, and then I don't like my old self, and it's just this pattern of negative.
It's like a tornado.
It is. Oh my gosh, it is a tornado. Ask my husband what that is. So for my listeners and my followers that are closer to our age, menopause. I was told today I'm post-menopause.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, seriously? I looked at the guy, the doctor, and I went, no, I'm not post.
I'm not post anything.
I'm free. Because no, you've got the estrogen of a 70-year-old. Wait, stop it. So tell us, we were talking earlier. See, I think it's my ovaries and my uterus and but it's not.
It's not. It's your brain. And your ovaries and your brain talk to each other because the chemicals of estrogen are in the neuroendocrine system in your brain. And so they're producing, that's a chemical, estrogen is a chemical. And so it's producing things that your body uses for you. And if you think about all the symptoms of menopause, which are hot flashes, well, that's in the brainstem because that controls the temperature. If you think about mood swings, that's in the amygdala. That controls all of your emotional center. Memory loss and, that brain fog. Yeah. That's in the hippocampus. So all of these things are part of your brain. And they now have a new study, which is frightening. And, women have a 2/3 higher chance to have Alzheimer's than men. And they are finding a great deal of research that is linked to the drop in estrogen and what it does to the human brain very differently than men because their testosterone lowers gradually. And it's so gradual that they don't have, a name for them like menopause. But for women, like when your ovaries start shutting down, like they're putting on the brakes and, and so it does things to you and you begin to think you're crazy, which is also part of the problem. And like for me, I'm the Sahara Desert. If anybody wanted DNA, just come sit by me because I got flakes of something falling off.
It won't take. No, it's true.
It's true. And I'll cake myself with oil and I could swim in crepe erase and I'd come out and I'd still look like a piece of tissue paper.
I know. Very colorful though. Yes. Very colorful.
And I remember my granny used to tell me a long time ago, necks don't lie.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh, now I know what she meant. it looks like the back of an elephant.
Sure. Right.
And my hair falls out and I'll just be mad all of a sudden when like 3 seconds ago I was happy. And I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Right.
So it's also a mind game that you're playing with yourself. Beside your mind is creating all kinds of alterations. And this is when I truly believe it's more important to be happy than ever, because you'll travel down a path of, I don't like me, I'm not myself, I'm fat, I'm ugly, I don't look like I used to, I don't feel like I used to. And energy and estrogen are directly connected. And, I can't keep up with my old self, and it makes me mad.
I know.
And I'm like, man, I used to could do so much more.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes, I know. So take us to your son, which junior high age. Now, mind you, I'm a chef. I do not know what is about to come out of my mouth. So be careful here. So the frontal lobe.
Yes.
Okay. So my former neighbor is a pediatrician, and she would always tell me when the girls were cheerleaders, my daughter was a cheerleader, and they just couldn't think.
Right.
Because it's a certain. So tell us about the frontal lobe, and when does that change with the brain? Does that because
Yes.
I'm sure you can work with your son now, like
very differently.
Yeah.
It's the prefrontal cortex is the part of your brain where higher level thinking, reasoning, judgment, all of those are up here. And according to the latest research, that doesn't fully develop until you're about 25.
Wow.
Yeah, which is frightening beyond measure, because we let 16-year-olds drive and, 18-year-olds vote. And then you're like, you can't even make a good decision.
Right.
But what happens with adults too is when we're angry and we're having, especially like a moment, a fight, when we get in the emotional part of our brain, which is the limbic system, it kind of shuts off the prefrontal cortex. And that's why you hear people in prison that say, I don't know what I was thinking. I wasn't in my right mind. I can't imagine why I would do it. They really weren't in their right mind.
Wow.
Because the blood flow no longer goes to this area of the brain. It stays in the limbic system and the lizard brain, which is the fight or flight. That's why people throw things and, they just get in their car and drive off and they do all the things because they weren't thinking. Then when you've had time to calm down, you're like, oh, why did I say that? Why did I hit send on that email? What was I doing?
Yes.
So it's so important when you're in one of those frenzies, I call them moments, that you stop and name it. And naming your emotion actually moves the blood flow back to your cognitive prefrontal cortex, because giving it a name, you have to go, what am I feeling? Am I jealous? Am I angry? So that is a higher level thinking skill.
Wow.
And so just naming it is super important. And also I teach people the stop method. And anytime you're angry, this works every single time. So the S stands for say your own name. And your brain knows your name better than any other name in the world. And every mom knows that when you go to, Target or whatever, and you hear somebody go, Mom, and we all turn and look. Yeah. But if you say your own name, then it really works. So when I feel myself losing it, I'll say, Staci, stop. And all of a sudden your brain will pause for just a second and go, oh, what are we stopping? Like, what's going on? That moment is just enough to shift the blood flow back over here. So the T stands for take a deep breath, because the lizard brain controls your breathing. None of us tell ourselves to breathe. But when you purposely tell yourself to breathe, take 3 breaths in, hold it for 3 seconds. So in for 3, hold it for 3, out for 3, and then swallow at the end. And all of that tells your lizard brain, I'm taking over the breathing right now. So when you take over the lizard, you also take over the fight, flight, freeze response that the lizard controls. So that's so easy to do. That's why all those times your mom would say, stop and take a deep breath, count to 10.
She was right.
It really works. The O stands for make an observation. So wherever you are, whatever you're doing right then, look around and find one thing that you could be grateful for. And the P stands for pause and hold that grateful thought for 10 to 30 seconds. And that's what my TED Talk was about. 30 seconds a day can alter your life and your brain forever.
Oh, absolutely.
And so I remember the first time I learned this and I did it, I was at my son's soccer game, my little son, and I had just seen my ex-husband with his super cute girlfriend. And truth be told, it was all jealousy. Her butt was where it belonged. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, he's going to like you way better than me. And so you then start feeling terrible. And so I was catching myself being so mad. And so I stopped, said my name, took a breath, and I looked around and I did my observation. And the only thing I could find was this little darling blonde-headed girl, 6 years old, twirling like a ballerina down the soccer field. She didn't even know the ball was going by her. And I thought, you know what? That is precious.
Right.
That is precious. And I want to have that amount of freedom and just live life and be happy.
Right.
And I was like, oh my gosh, it worked. And
it works.
It worked. It works every single time.
Well, of course it works. And I wish, at my age, I wish I had had these tools years and years and years and years ago. I mean, because, gosh, I've said some things.
Me too. I apologize to my 30-year-old all the time. I'll say, son, you were my practice kid.
Oh, yeah.
I'm so sorry.
I know, because it's true. It's just, and honestly, I do understand because I can think, I do. Going through the changes of life, I am recognizing that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm recognizing that I am starting to take a break and I am breathing and I need to start saying my name though.
Yeah, say your name.
Say your name.
That's the very first thing. Do that first. That's the S.
Okay.
And, like if you ever watch the dog whisperer guy, Caesar, and he'll, and he does that to the dog, it's the same thing because it gets the blood flow. Like anytime you say that pause, you're like, what am I doing? All it takes is a momentary pause to stop that cycle because your brain creates these little pathways. And if you stop it in mid pathway, you also stop the end result, which is, I said something I didn't want, or I threw a dish, or whatever, all the things people do.
So stop, say your name, take a deep breath. O is
make an observation.
Observation.
Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, right then.
P is
pause and hold it for 10 to 30 seconds.
Okay. This is huge, people. We're not charging you for this. She's not charging me. So this is what you work on.
Uh-huh. And you just got to know what your trigger is, because different things trigger people. So, somebody playing soccer might not bother somebody else.
See, mine is beauty too, because my house needs to be, I left the house today. I told Paul, Greg opened his vitamins and left the package. I'm like, do we need it here? Or were you going to save it for later? Or what? But it's true that I want everything in order. I don't want any boxes that aren't, you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's interesting, and how to define yourself.
Yes. And then if he realizes, that you're not just being a smart aleck, and I have to say that to my husband too. And I'll say, oh, honey, I think you forgot how important beauty is for me. And I know that if you would have remembered, you would have never left your shoes right here. So I'm going to pick them up for you that next time you might remember. And he'll go, oh no,
here we go.
But then it has reminded him enough times, and I'll hear him every once in a while tell Brady, like, remember, beauty's your mom's thing. Get your toothpaste out of the sink in there.
That is so great. Oh my gosh. So the frontal lobe, that brain that when you're younger and it goes to 25, are there people, is it more male or female, that it goes beyond those years?
It's, according to research, it's a little slower to develop in males, and some girls, 21, 23, it'll be pretty developed. But, people used to think when I was a kid that you have as many brain cells as you're ever going to have. People used to always tell me that. And that's not true. They know for sure that's not true now. It's neurogenesis. Your brain makes new brain cells all the time. The reason you don't ever think differently and you don't create a different brain is because you don't create any new pathways. And that's called neuroplasticity. When you think a different way, you literally create a different brain. And as long as you think the same thoughts, your pathways are going to go right back to the same. So you'll keep having the same bad attitude, the same whatever. And, it's just so important to, even if you just think one new thing a day and you drive one new direction, do something so your brain has to stay active. And especially women, because our brains tend to shut down, 2 times more than men, or we're more susceptible to Alzheimer's. And, cook different, do it with your left hand, try to put your mascara on different, do something different to force your brain to keep creating new connections. So
it's been about a year and a half now, and we've been on hold with COVID, but I have a group of friends that I really didn't know these women. So that was creating a different energy and a different, for me to try to get to know these women at our age. We started a Mahjong group, and let me tell you what, that is the most difficult. Now my degrees, but playing that game
is hard.
It is so hard. It's so difficult, but it was so good because, I haven't played it in probably 2 or 3 months, and I can't even imagine, Staci, because it's so out of my comfort zone, but thinking of the patterns and have you played?
Right. Yeah. I used to play on my phone and it gets me so frustrated. And I'm like,
yes. It's so training. I did that, for a new group of friends and a friend group, but to train my brain because it's frightening.
And you think like my parents are retired and, you think about that's why people get grumpy. That's why, you don't hear that much about people getting dementia or whatever until after they retire. Well, when you become sedentary and you just keep doing the same thing every day and you wake up at the same time and you eat the same food and you watch the same TV shows and you do all the stuff, your brain says, oh, we no longer need all these cells. And it does pruning. And every night you have these things called glial cells and they're like little vacuum cleaners in your brain. And if you don't use that, your brains are built for efficiency and they're like, oh, vacuum that out.
Wow.
We don't need that anymore.
Ugh.
So
I'm on a mission now.
Yeah, do something crazy.
Absolutely. I am. I'm going to do something crazy. But you were saying, we're going back to the newness wearing off in relationships or buying a car. What we were talking about earlier, you get a new car.
And you're so careful. And it's called novelty in the brain. And you know how I think everybody, when they get their new car, they're so careful and we're like, nobody's eating in here. Get your shoes off the thing, And then about 3 months later, you got your feet on the dash and there's dried up French fries in the back seat and the dog's in there and all the stuff. And it's the same car. So it's your thoughts about the car. The car doesn't change. And the research is, between 3 and 6 months is as long as novelty will last, even on huge things like cars and boats and, new homes and new husbands and all the things.
Relationships.
Yes. And so that's why they always tell people don't marry somebody until you've dated them for 6 months.
No joke.
6 months is as long as novelty will hold. And I've heard so many people go, he was so nice. And after 6 months, he just went crazy. No, he went back to who he was. He just quit trying because that's all it'll last is about 6 months. And so we have to, I think it would have saved me probably 1,000 mistakes had I realized to stop looking for happiness with these things because they do make you happy. So our brain tends to think, if I got a new car, I'd be happy. If I got a new haircut, I'd be happy. If I got a new shirt, if I just had this purse, if I just had this, whatever. And the world kind of plays into that. And so you go, oh my gosh, it did make me happy. I must need more of that.
Oh my gosh.
But it's not true. Happiness is all about the chemicals in your brain. And those items just happen to produce the chemical, but it doesn't last for longer than 3 to 6 months. That's why that, Chanel purse is no longer doing it for you. It did at first and you loved it and you may still love it when you put it on, but it's not the same. It's like, oh my God, I love this. Yeah. And that's why people lose interest with one another. They go have affairs because they need that sparkle. They need that dopamine rush. And that's what it is. But you can do that for yourself any given day of the week if you know what to do.
Wow. So, so people that I'm trying to draw a correlation here. People that cheat, okay, or habitual cheaters. What is wrong with them?
They're needing a giant dopamine rush. And every addiction, whether it be sex, alcohol, drugs, gambling, shopping, all of it, it's all dopamine. And, dopamine is what is in opioids and, heroin and those things. And I mean, it works through your brain really quickly, but it gives it a giant rush at the beginning, but it wears off very quickly, where oxytocin lasts a little longer in the brain and serotonin does too. And so you want more of it. That's why, a heroin addict just wants more, and they used to do one hit and then they did more, and an affair. Ooh, that one was great. And next time I don't like my wife, that made me feel good. And what it is the wiring in your brain is like, okay, you go get what made you feel good. And which is crazy because if you talk to people who've had affairs, it's never about the person. And it's not that they were, the world's sexiest or whatever. And so many times people are like, I cannot believe he was with her. Like, what was he thinking? And he wasn't thinking, for one. His brain was craving that rush, but she provided something in his brain that he's not getting somewhere else. And not that justifies it by any means, but it helps couples realize, oh, if I gave you that same rush, if I gave you that same dopamine hit, you would feel that way about me.
Wow.
But when couples fight, they're releasing cortisol. And cortisol does exactly the opposite in the brain. And it creates tension and anxiety and frustration. It creates belly fat. It raises your risk of heart attack and blood pressure. And there's a new documentary about it on Netflix that it's linked to the 3 deaths of despair. And the United States is one of the only countries that our mortality rate is going down. And it's because of keeping the stress so long every day. Think about most couples don't have 20 fights. They have one fight 20 times.
Right.
And it's because each person is going down their same pathway, dumping out the same chemicals, and they do the same thing and go over and over.
I mean, this information is unbelievable. You're right. You can go back to the not 25 fights, one fight about one subject. Right.
Over and over and over.
And just beating a dead horse.
And it's just like riding the ruts. When like say your husband left the vitamins out, you're like, and you went down I can't believe you would do this. And he went down, well, I just left it there. And your brain just says, oh, this is what we're doing. Oh, we did that last week. And it just lines up all the little pathways for you, dumps out those same chemicals. You end up probably doing the same thing. He pouts for 2 days. You go shopping, whatever. That used to be my go-to. I'd go shopping for pretty much everything. And then all of a sudden, then I'm over it because those chemicals wore out.
Right.
But I wasn't really over it. We never came to a conclusion. They'll say, okay, I'll never do it again. Well, they do it again next week. I do it again next week too.
Sure.
We all do. But if we just realize it's not personal, it's your brain patterns. And if you learn to work with someone's brain pattern and realize they're not going to alter their filters. They are what they are. And Dr. Lobe, which is one of my very favorite neuroscientists, he says it used to be nature, nurture, and it's always 50-50. That's what all the research says. But now they're adding in a new one, discipline, nature, nurture, and discipline.
Wow.
And you can discipline your way into altering nature and nurture.
Oh, my goodness.
And if you want to bad enough.
So so much that I read about you and your website is I just have a question for you. No, that's the only, am I happy? I think I'm happy. I really do and believe it. So are we happy? Does that make sense?
Yes. I think if you feel good, you can rest assured your body is releasing good chemicals. That's the way you know. It's that easy. If you feel bad, you can rest assured you're releasing bad chemicals. So whether it's anxiety or tension or any of those little things, you can anytime, like on the way down here, I was getting stressed. I was in traffic and my little son and I were in a 4-car pileup last year or 2 years ago. And I have now had this paranoid fear of somebody hitting me from the behind again. And because I could see him in the mirror and knew they were fixing to hit the, back there. And all I could think about was Brady was going to, be hurt. So for some reason now my brain has just associated that. And so I had to talk to myself all the way here. Staci, stop. People drive this road every day. You've driven 47,000 other times and have not had a wreck. And so I was talking to myself, and I say that all the time. If you don't talk to your head will talk to you, and you might not like what it's saying.
Oh, well, heavens.
But if you are feeling bad, that's your go-to. Like, oh, I'm feeling bad. I'm releasing bad chemicals, and you better stop them quick.
Right.
Because after about 30 minutes, they'll take over. And then all of a sudden you'll just have a bad day. And people say that all the time, I don't know. I'm just in a bad mood. I don't really know why.
And is it a feeling poorly physically?
It can be any.
Mentally? Okay. Emotionally?
Any bad.
Mm-hmm. Any bad. Okay. So tell me about what you offer. If let's say I'm your client, what about your clients? Tell me
I do 3 different things. I do one-on-one coaching, and that's probably the bulk of my business, I would say. And we go through and figure out what your triggers are. And we go through the foundational filters. So you'll know what yours are because you'll keep them, and then what to do with it and how to counteract when you get angry and how to use your chemicals to create happiness in your brain. I also teach online courses. And my one signature course, I would say, is Chemical Soup, and it's on my website right now. It's my whole of my research, and probably I think the biggest game changer. But it's learning the 6 different ways that you change your chemicals any second, any moment of any day, and it works every time. You don't have to buy a new car, a new anything. It's all stuff you can do. And then I do keynote speeches and. I used to travel around the world and speak. Now I sit at my house in front of a computer.
Once upon a time. And you just did the keynote speech at UC Davis graduation, correct?
Well, no, it was their opening for their human resources. And they were the people that do child welfare in that department.
Right.
And it was crazy because I was supposed to go. And, there are hundreds of people in an audience that you can't see. And they couldn't put, all 100 little pictures on there. I think there were 300 people. And so I just talked to myself and I just looked at the computer screen and it was crazy. I mean, it was really fun, actually. And the people were really sweet. But I only had contacts in, not my bifocals, because you have to have all the lighting, and it makes that weird little ring.
Yes, it does.
And so I couldn't see what they were saying and I couldn't see them. So I was literally talking to myself on a computer screen.
You have to be so good.
And I was thinking, I'm so much better in person.
I'm better than this.
And and when you tell something funny and you're like, are they laughing in California? Or are they, and there was people from, all over, people in New York. I'm like, is that funny? Do you pause?
No.
It was crazy.
I bet. So you are, and my daughter actually explained this to me. You're a TEDx speaker.
Yes.
Okay. So the definition, and I did Google this, TEDx Talk is a showcase for speakers presenting great, well-informed ideas under 18 minutes.
Yes.
And you just explained to me your speech.
Yeah. And
okay.
The 18 minutes is super important. But I didn't know, because I first started applying for a TED Talk after I graduated. And I was so in the academia world and, proving a thesis and a theory and all the data and all that. That's not what they want. It's an idea worth spreading. And that's, their whole little thing. And so you have to have an idea that you can back up. And so I got rejected 3 times before I finally got it the 4th time. But my TED Talk is about how 30 seconds a day can change your life. And I talk about how to hold the thoughts of gratitude and how that alters the chemicals, which alters your wiring, which alters your life.
Absolutely. I'm finding that out.
Yes.
Gosh, I got to rewire myself. But how am I going to do that with menopause?
I know. You have to work double hard. It's so unfair.
Trust me. I mean, I don't even know. I know. But this is helping everyone of all ages. I mean, my daughter, I'm anxious for her to listen to this.
I have lots of teenage clients.
Do you?
And I work with families too, especially I have, like the teenager who has one point of view and the parents generally take it as being disrespectful or will come to find out they have a whole different set of foundational filters. And what they thought the parents wanted, they thought that's what they were doing. And then what the parents assumed they knew, they didn't. And it's all a filter bump. And it's, it's crazy. But kids don't know how to control their anger. And we're really not taught that. And this generation of kids is the first global generation that we've ever had in the world. And when you and I were kids, if somebody was mean to us, they either went to school with us, they were on our soccer team, or they cheerleaded with us. We knew them. They had skin on.
Sure.
And this generation of kids has people being negative from around the world. And, parents, and I catch myself sometimes telling Brady, like, oh, son, ignore that. Well, I'm thinking, I never had to do that. I did that as a grown up, because anybody in social media, you get haters all the time and keyboard courage. And so, but as a 53-year-old, I can blow that off because I'm like, you don't even know me. You don't get the right to say that. If you're going to put anonymous by your name, no. But for Brady, who's 12, that's a big deal. And I was like, oh my gosh, his brain doesn't have that. And I never did that at 12. If somebody was mean to me at 12, they had skin on.
Absolutely.
And what's bad about this generation, which they are studying immensely, is they're being raised by parents who also don't understand. And so the kids are thinking they're doing it wrong and they're being bad and they're doing it incorrectly because they're not doing it like their parents said. But the parents have no idea, oh yeah, that rule applied very differently than for you because I never had that happen.
Never.
I didn't have the world in my pocket.
I know it.
Yeah.
Ireland, and you and I both you grew up in a tiny town.
Yeah.
And I did too. There was 1,000 in my town and
I had
you beat
397.
You beat me. I had 1,008. Now your high school graduating class.
27.
I had 14.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
There you go.
I think because every 5 minutes there was a school, but I was in the top 10. So it's all good. Of course you were. Of course you were. So, okay. So you are you're going to make people realize if they're happy or not.
Yes.
Right?
That's my goal, is to bridge the gap between joy and science. And I think so many people in the world of neuroscience are stuffy I'm sorry, all the rest of you. But they're so into the academia and the research and all that, which is lovely, but they don't get it out to the people. And I think that's where I'm so grateful for my teaching background, because I've taught, everywhere from first grade to seniors, and I know how to make it accessible to people so that they can actually use it. And they don't care about the 14, 0.460, they don't want to know that. They want to know, how can I use this at my house? Mm-hmm. How can it work? How can it fix my relationship? How can I be happy?
Right. The stop.
Yes.
The stop that you just explained earlier.
And there's so much more. But there's sad people all over that think that money and a house and a car is what they need to be happy. And that's not true.
No, I do believe that for sure. Now, your research project or your research study was gratitude.
Yes.
So what's the difference between the gratitude and the happiness?
Well, people think gratitude is just saying thank you. And they kind of generally connect it with manners. And which is funny, because one of people's number one things they hate is ingratitude. And, like when you hold the door open for somebody and they don't at least say thank you, you want to slam it back in their face.
Right. Exactly.
But scientific gratitude is a measurable change of frequency in the brain, because it creates a chemical change. So like, I love coffee. I'm an avid coffee drinker. I always say my birthstone is a coffee bean. And I drink it all day long. But I used to just drink it and I loved it, but I didn't really know. I didn't think about why I loved it. But the why is the secret sauce. And that's the difference between gratitude and thank you. And when you have to stop and think why, which also moves to the prefrontal cortex, and you're like, oh my God. And I drink coffee every day with a mug that I can get all 4 fingers through. And I hold on to it every morning. And I'm like, oh my God, I love this. I love the warmth in my hand. It feels like my granny's hugs. And I think about my granny every morning. And then when I take that first sip, I just pause for 10 seconds and go, oh my gosh, I love that sweet cream and the bitter coffee going down my throat. And I focus on all the things I love about it and the why. And that's it. It takes 10 to 30 seconds and you've created a whole chemical shift in your brain.
Wow. And is it the experience, perhaps?
Yes, it's the feeling. But when you feel the why you like it, your brain has to put all that connection in place. And so you're using about 3 times more wires than you just drank it and went on your way. And how many times have we eaten something and you go to get the last bite and you're like, did I eat that?
Right.
Because we're not thinking. Mm-hmm. We don't enjoy the cake or that's why I say, if you treasure it while you're eating it, you digest it differently because you're creating happy chemicals instead of sad ones. And so anything, like my son, when he gives me a hug now, because I know they're few and far between as he's approaching teenagehood, and I treasure it. I mean, I'm like, oh, baby, hang on one more second.
Right.
And I said, remember when you were little and you used to put your face up here? And he'll say, do you want me to do it again? I'll say, please. But I hold on to every thought. And even if it's, in the morning, a red bird, and I'm like, oh my God, that's the most beautiful shade of red. Right. And I hang on to the thought 10 seconds. And I'm like, if you don't have 10 seconds, you don't have a life.
Exactly.
And you don't want to try very hard.
Gosh, you're teaching us so much. Oh my gosh. You're so smart.
Thank you.
You've got so much moxie. I can't stand it.
I promised Dr. Swartz I'd be the happiest neuroscience on the planet.
I think you're my new girl crush. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, but I have to say this. Staci, you don't drink wine.
I know. I tried so hard. And I told you, I always feel like people look so important when they drink it. And I do drink water out of a wine glass.
Oh, my.
Because I love that. It does. And it's the experience. Like you said, it makes you feel important. And I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. So I love everything that involves an experience. Yeah,
I've got to do
happy
that.
girl. But I cannot stand it. It's so bitter. And it just,
girl, you drink coffee.
I know, but I put like 4 cans of melted ice cream on top of black coffee.
Okay, there it is. My specialty is in flavors and flavor profiling. I studied it long and hard. And when you said I love coffee, I'm like, that's a wine drinker right there.
No,
yeah.
I put literally this much cream.
Oh.
My husband says I only drink coffee as a vehicle to drink the cream.
That is awesome. That is awesome. But you know what? For example, I will go home this evening, and the thought of holding my wine glass there's only one brand of glassware I'll use, and I'm holding it and drinking that wine and just the experience. And my husband sits with me and we have this, it's like our date, but coffee is our date too. See, we're happy. Yeah. We're happy.
See,
people.
And I could tell part of one of the courses we took is in neurolinguistics, and I can hear inflections in your voice. So when I listen to people talk, I know their brain is like saying things. You genuinely felt all of that. And I could tell instantly your brain was dumping out chemicals, because even in your description of it, it was all like your dilation in your eyes changed, your voice intonation shifted. So if we would do that with everything, I mean, you could change your life immensely with just your thoughts.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to go do this to my husband.
Even in the bed, in the mornings, when I get out of the bed, I always feel like my bed feels like vanilla pudding, because we have one of those number beds, and mine's pretty much on mush. Mine's on the mush setting. And I have this big down comforter. And when the alarm goes off, I always do my 9-minute snooze, and I do my gratitudes in my morning. That's also very important because it sets your chemicals for the rest of the day. And what you hold, your first thoughts in the morning can last up to 6 hours in your brain. And so most people wake up every morning thinking about what they've got to do. Oh my gosh, I got to get the clothes out of the dryer. I got to fix laundry, blah, blah, blah. And they're all negative thoughts. Well, no wonder your day just went to crap. So if you'll hold those first moments, it's called the sweet spot, when your brain is in and out of alpha waves and beta waves, when you're kind of asleep and kind of awake and just laying there. If you'll think about all the things you're grateful for, and it's like a chemical happy cocktail going on in your head. But I lay there every morning like, oh my God, this bed feels like vanilla pudding. And I just imagine myself, in a little bowl of it, and the covers feel better. It will tell your brain you're happy, and that's what you want to do.
Wow. So in the morning, so I usually set my alarm for 4:30 or 5. I get up early and go to the gym, but I pray. That's my pray time.
Yeah.
Like, thank you so much for, blah, blah. So is that okay?
Yes. But you could even throw in a little bit of that before. And all the times too, and we're probably running out of time. People, when they pray wrong. Because when you say, dear God, please, that's from a place of lack. And so that tells your brain you don't really believe it. But when you say, God, thank you that you're going to heal me. Thank you that you're creating a home for our family. Thank you. Thank you is an abundance in your brain, and it releases the chemicals thereof. Please is from a place of lack and begging. Think about the reasons we say please. Would you please pass me that? Would you please do that? So when we say that in our prayers, our brain is going, oh, you don't really believe that. And so it's this capricious God. If I act good enough, could you please do that today? But when you say, thank you that you're going to heal me, thank you that it does something completely different. That's why in the Bible it says, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Open your hearts with thanksgiving and your gates with praise.
I'm sorry, Lord.
It's gratitude.
I'm going to change a lot of things today. My husband's going to say, would you get Staci back on there again, please? Let's get a little reboot, right? Oh my gosh. So is your family happy that you are in this career?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, you're helping all of them, right?
They worry about me, but because I'm trying to save the world. But I'm saving them one smile at a time.
If you watch on YouTube, she walked in these beautiful, fabulous hot pink pants and this polka dot shirt. I mean, beautiful blouse. And she's just this ray of energy. And I knew it the minute I stalked you on Instagram when Liz said, you have to meet Staci. Oh my goodness. And you're such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Is COVID going, I know that's a negative thought, but we're going to be okay, right?
I think so. And I think the way we think about COVID is your game changer.
Really?
And if you think of it like, oh God, this is never going to end. This is never going to, that's the chemicals. You're dumping out those chemicals. And even for my son, who was really sad, he didn't get to start junior high.
Sure.
He wanted to do lockers and he wanted to get his hair all cool. And I'm like, oh my gosh, Brady, but think about it. By the time you go back, they're going to have all the bugs worked out. And then everybody's going to be really glad to see each other. And it's just a shift. It's like putting a frame on something, and you can go get a frame at Walmart or you can go get an awesome one.
Right.
And it changed. It's the art did not change, but it looks like it changed because of its surroundings.
Absolutely. And I do think this is going to make us all much more aware as well. But I agree. This is going to end. I mean,
of course.
I have enough confidence in our world. This will end.
I think so too.
But you're right. Shifting the energy and the thought process for sure.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Staci, I love you. My new girl crush.
Thank
oh my
you
gosh.
so
I love her so much. So, okay. Tell us how to find you.
They can, my Instagram is probably where I am the most, and it's Staci Danford, Staci with an I. Then my website is thegratefulbrain.com. And you can sign up there for my newsletter. I do a weekly newsletter where I give people free tips and tricks about how to change their brain and what's going on with the world and how you can rethink it. And
oh my goodness, what a gift.
And,
oh, yeah.
And this next week is Unicorn Week, starting August 24th, and it's free. It's a 5-day challenge. You can sign up on my website. Go to The Grateful Brain /unicorn. And I'm going to do 5 days of how to sparkle from the inside out, and especially for women, and how to change the way you feel about yourself, because that's where you begin to change your chemicals. If you look in the mirror every day and hate yourself, no wonder your life's not going great.
Yeah, and I mean, young girls right now and boys.
Yeah, they need it.
And the
so
internet,
bad.
the social media. If I would have had that, I mean, I just had my friend down the street. I mean, there was not. I mean, we didn't have that.
And only 4% of girls call themselves beautiful. 4.
No.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness. I'm so happy for this generation, but this generation is probably the toughest generation.
Hard.
I can't imagine just you and I at our age on social media.
Yeah. People are mean.
I know they are.
Yeah. I had somebody blast me yesterday and I was like, wow.
What?
Yeah.
You? Oh my gosh, the happiest woman in the world. Are you joking? Who did that? I've got this. Well, everyone, yes, Unicorn Week next week we are in. And everyone, are you happy? Talk to Staci Danford. We'll see if you're happy and get happy. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
I feel like I have a lifelong friend now. This is such a great for coming here for my community and my followers. And everyone, follow along on YouTube. Please go and subscribe to YouTube for me, for my so-called fabulous. Rate and review this, and Instagram at Tiffany C. Blackman. And everyone, be safe out there, be happy, and keep being fabulous. Have a great day.